Welcome to the business edition of PM Express. Now, one of the basic principles of the economic ECOWAS Union is free movement of persons and goods. It's expected that it will give real meaning to efforts aimed at promoting integration. However, recent development in the country has raised concerns about the possible threats to this ECOWAS treaty. It talks about free movement of goods and persons. Now, some even have argued that portions of the country's investment laws appear to be in conflict with this treaty and it should be reviewed. Now, one can talk about the GIPC Act, which actually restricts the retail market for indigents. So, is the ECOWAS treaty under threat? Well, this evening on Business Edition on PM Express, we're looking at enforcing retail trade laws in the country and whether it's a threat to the ECOWAS integration. What do we do? What do we draw the line between respecting the ECOWAS protocol and the interest of the sovereign nation Ghana? Is the country ready for ECOWAS integration as you push for the headquarters of the Continental Free Trade Agreement? Or Ghanaian businesses and industries are just not that competitive? Well, this evening on PM Express as the business edition, we'll be joined by Nana Osebonsu. He is the Chief Executive of the Private Enterprise Federation, and also Richard Mpabing. When it comes to issues of international trade, he has some solid grounding, and I'll be getting more views on these experts as we look at the real threats to ECOWAS integration and protecting the interest of indigents. On the business edition on PM Express, my name is George Yafe. You're welcome back to the business edition of PM Express as we look at whether we should enforce our retail trade laws in Ghana and whether that is a threat to the ECOWAS integration agenda. So let's get some basic understanding. What does the GIPC law on investment actually says, and also the ECOWAS treaty that actually brings these countries in ECOWAS say? Let's get some understanding. What does the GIPC law say when it comes to people trading in that retail space? We're going to get some understanding with the details of what does it mean. If I want to trade in that retail space, what does it say? And what about the ECOWAS treaty? Let's have those details roll on our screens as we get that basic understanding about what does it mean. So if you look on the screens, you have the GIPC Promotion Act, which gives us some details on when, or if you want to trade in that retail space, who has the right. We understand that a person who is not a citizen or an enterprise which is not wholly owned by a Ghanaian or not investing. Now, on the scale of goods and provisions, now this law actually gives us some details on who has the right to participate in the retail market in terms of the capital that you need to have, and also who actually has the right to play in that space. It's talking about the fact that it's reserved for indigents, and even if foreigners want to operate in that space, they need to bring in some significant amount of capital, about $1 million or that, and also employ about 20 people if you want to operate in that space. So that Ghana Investment Promotion Act, that is 2013, giving us some breakdown of who actually has the right to do petty trading or play in that retail market. If you are a Ghanaian, or if you're not a Ghanaian, maybe you don't have that right to play in that space. So what about the foreigners as well? So the Act also defines who is a foreigner and what they are supposed to do when they come to Ghana and what they are not supposed to do. Let's get some basic understanding here. So this one is also giving us some details on entry, admission, and protection of investment enterprises eligible, that is the foreign participating in the market. You're looking at the fact that you also have to bring in some foreign capital, a person who is not a citizen participating in that space. Other than that, you need to bring in some significant amount of capital. You need to also employ some amount of persons, or some number of persons actually, if you want to play in that retail market. And the GIPC Act actually gives us a breakdown of foreigners that want to play in that retail space, what you need to do, the capital that you need to bring in if indeed you want to play in the retail market, which is actually reserved for Ghanaians. So if you've been following developments on the news, you heard about traders in Kumasi saying that the retail space is for Ghanaians and let's do away with foreigners, if I should say. But we've signed a treaty, an ECOWAS Act, that sought to break down all the barriers and promote integration. So why do we draw the line between having this free movement of goods and persons and also protecting those markets for indigents? Let's get a look, or let's look at what the ECOWAS Treaty also says about the movement of persons and whether they give us any rights as Ghanaians in protecting our local space. So, Nana, let's bring in Nana Osei-Bonsu. He's the Chief Executive of the Private Enterprise Federation, and also Richard Ampabing. He's a trade expert. And Richard, thank you, distinguished gentlemen, for joining me on the business edition on PM Express. As we try to look at the business side of this whole thing, is Ghana really ready for free trade, movements of goods and persons, breaking down the barriers? And I'll come to you because you represent the business interest, having engaged a lot of businesses and your members. And Richard Ampabing, he's a trade expert. If you look at the ECOWAS Treaty and look at our investment laws, is Ghana ready for open borders, breaking down the borders, and real integration?
Yeah, I would say the two issues must be separated for the purposes of getting understanding. Regional integration is a good idea, and if you ask me, it's a flavor to trading, and it creates space, brings and expands market. So if we get this basic understanding of regional integration, then we can move forward. The whole point of regional integration in terms of trade can be defined under political economy and socio-economy. Most often than not, we emphasize on the political economy and leave the socio-economy. And any time that happens, it creates problem for nation states who are integrated. Why is it that elsewhere people go into integration, then they say, no, it's not good for me. They opt out of the integration because emphasis is always on the political economy and not the socio-economy. The socio-economy is where you can address your poverty in the country. It's where you can address your unemployment. It's where you can be innovative. So if you are going to throw all this out there, then you could be in some serious problem. So the framers of the legislation,
that the ECOWAS Treaty, right? Or
the ECOWAS Treaty, if I'm to talk about it, it's not ready yet. Because if you are saying we have to open borders,
break down
everything as it is, where is the harmonization of trade laws? Should Ghana get its own trade law, Nigeria its own trade law, Cote d'Ivoire its own trade law, Burkina Faso its own trade law, and then you tell me that everybody is working in its own silo, yet you want us to fuse ourselves together. Other people will take advantage of others. And that's why when you don't address these ones, you'll be creating problems. When we said we should all get equal, where is it?
That said about 2020, next year.
So why are you now saying the other aspects of it should happen now? So are we putting the cart before the horse?
You think that we didn't
We are going faster than the ECOWAS itself in terms of integration. Because we need even to harmonize telecommunication. Have we done that?
We've not done that. Let me bring in Nana. Nana, you are with businesses, Private Enterprise Federation, and some have argued that maybe Ghanaian businesses are not ready for competition. And that is why we are behaving this way.
What kind of competition are we talking about?
Open your borders, allow others
Fair
to come in.
competition. Everybody's ready for it.
What do you define as fair competition?
When you have state-sponsored businesses coming into our shores, how do we compete? Let me give you a scenario where the guy coming from outside has cost of money at 3%. The Ghanaian is borrowing at 30%, a mismatch of 27%. The person coming from overseas gets a tax exemption of 25%. The local has no tax exemption. So he's disadvantaged 52% before we start. What kind of competition is that? So when we're talking about harmonization of trade, it doesn't mean we lose our sovereignty. ECOWAS does not usurp the sovereignty of state of Ghana. It allows harmonization of trade laws and regulations. So when we're talking about limitations as to what is permissible for somebody coming from overseas and what is authorized for the locals, the government of the day has responsibility to its citizens. So anybody coming from ECOWAS, should they be able to vote because they're coming from ECOWAS? No. There are certain things that are peculiar to, particular to the citizenry. And the foreign also have their ways and other opportunities. So we should decouple this kind of arrangement that, oh, it says Ghanaians retail trade is restricted to only Ghanaians and then foreigners can. That's not true. What is ShopRite? What are they doing? It's retail trade.
Yeah. But they are not operating.
At a certain level, there's a requirement.
Yeah.
There's a minimum capital that you need to be able to do that. So what the government is saying that, yes, you can do retail trade, but it got to be 1 million plus and above.
And employing a number of Ghanaians.
And employ a number of people. If you do this, then it means you qualify to do the retail trading. It's not, the key word is petty, P-E-T-T-Y. Petty trading, that's what is restricted below 1 million. If there are laws, ECOWAS says, go into the country, be permitted to do A, B, C, D, whatever is available. But within the context of the rule of law, why is anybody not complaining about the minimum capital requirement in banking?
Maybe
it's required by everybody else.
Maybe they are well capitalized in that space, but when it comes to trading, it's a different thing.
There's a capitalization requirement in every aspect of business, and that's what we're saying, that if you come in to do retail, you have to come with 1 million plus, not all cash. It got to be in kind, a mixture of both. So these are things that we got to be able to explain to somebody coming. That we're not opening the entire store. We're not giving the entire store away, because the rights of the citizenry to earn a living is the ultimate responsibility of government. So he says, my people are small and medium. Look, if we constitute our economy, 86% by micros, SMEs, who's going to take care of them? They don't have the capacity, they don't have the technical skills, they don't have the resources. So there's a way for us to make sure that they earn an income, a living, a livelihood, so at least they can also perform their civic responsibility.
But Nana, some would argue that, listen, we are moving towards an era where countries are coming together. We're talking we're talking about the free continental trade agreement where...
Stop right there.
But,
the CFTA, it restricts 10%. It allows 10%, not going to be liberalized. 10%.
Would that be the petty trading, Anna?
That can be the petty trading.
But it has not been decided yet.
Well, for us to decide. We're already ahead of the game that we said that petty trading is restricted to Ghanaians. So if we go to the CFTA and we give the 90th percentile, the other side, the 10% restricted to the petty trading, that's the same thing.
But
so we are ahead of the game. You see, let's examine it on its merits. We are going to open our borders and our businesses, 90% of that, the tariff lines. Then the 10% that we set aside, 3% are never going to be open. 7% are going to be on the basis of how we tinker with this. These are things that are coming. Then once we have already stepped ahead of the game and said, this side is for our citizenry, this side, if you want to participate, scale up and get to the level where you bring 1 million. Why was the hue and cry?
But Nana, what I'm just trying to say is that we are moving towards an era where we want to bring these countries together. If Kwame and I from Sierra Leone, he comes to Ghana here, he goes into Makola, I want to sell Chalawati.
Now,
wait.
Come on.
still
Come on.
challenging.
That's not it.
Is it? Are we homogeneous? We're not homogeneous.
But that's where we
people.
want to move to.
We want
No.
to move to integration. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
No.
We're talking
Yeah.
about integration.
And we'll have our
Harmonizing,
identity.
Harmonizing. Yes, we have our
We have our identity.
As a Ghanaian, the sovereignty of Ghana is not usurped by the ECOWAS protocol.
Not at all.
Never. It's never going to happen. So when we're talking about harmonization, you say, oh, should we open A to Z? No, sir. We're not going to open A to Z. We said, if you want to be part of this, these are the requirements. If you want to go to school, you have to pass the exam, right?
Yeah.
These are the requirements. Meet the requirements. Hallelujah. Game is doing it. ShopRite is doing it. Others are doing it. There are no restrictions. So why do we complain?
No, but
Let me bring in Richard. I mean, Richard, let me get you back to the framers or the fathers of the ECOWAS Treaty when they signed the pact years ago that we want to be one. And recently, even in Malabo, the African Development Bank meeting, where they are saying that economic free trade zone, all the members who have signed, drop all the borders, visa-free requirements and all the rest. I don't know how it, but did they forgot about this thing that these member countries have their sovereignty and they have to protect the interests of their local businesses? Because it looks like everybody wants to play on these laws and treaties.
No, it's not that. You see, we need to agree that our sub-region itself has what I would say undulating field in terms of our GDP, in terms of inflation, in terms of devaluation of our currency, and all these things come to play when you are dealing with trade issues. So if that is the point, and mind you, integration is never to say that we are losing our identities. Our identities will be there. Our regulations will be there.
One passport, one currency, one central bank. What does all those things mean?
One passport, but there will be an issuing point.
Yeah.
There will be an issuing point.
Yes.
So why are we doing all these things? Even though we are integrating, we are also conscious of cross-border crimes. And if you say the way I understand you, we are fusing everything together.
Yeah.
If we did, then who takes care of cross-border crime, for instance? And ECOWAS itself do not have that instrument which will take care of these things I'm talking about.
The cross-border crime.
No, not cross-border crime alone. Even when we are talking about trade,
Yeah.
where is ECOWAS instrument to deal with trade infractions? Do they have it?
But I think those things have been...
Let me support that.
Yeah, Nana, come in.
The economic trade, ECOWAS trade liberalization scheme,
Yeah.
it allows everybody to go to the other country and do business. Every country has a trade commission.
Exactly.
Once they have certified you as meeting the ECOWAS requirements, you can trade to Nigeria,
Yeah.
right? Without any restriction. Get to Nigeria, they put their own impediment. After the certification by ECOWAS Trade Commission, is that not fair trade?
It is.
It is fair trade, but because they said you got to meet this requirement. That is not part of the ECOWAS protocol. But between them, you have no recourse. What do? You either meet the requirements or you don't. It doesn't call for recourse or any arbitration or any structure that can discuss and assist. The Continental Free Trade has this kind of commission that will look at the complaints by partners, between partners, and decide on that. ECOWAS doesn't have that. So that means there's a room for individual countries to impose certain things to make sure that the country irons out its trade liberalization in a way that doesn't infringe on its protection and doesn't infringe on its rights. We agree that we want integration.
Yeah.
We all want to do that. But it doesn't mean free store. You're talking about ECO.
Yeah.
No, none of these countries has ever met the conversion points. None. We
had Ghana making some progress. Yeah, we had Benin also making some progress. Benin also making some significant
progress. Nobody has met all the convention. So that means why are we wasting so much energy going where we don't? The central scheme system that will support that kind of harmonization in trade, we don't have that. Look at what happened to the EU. With the European, even the central bank that support all the monetary system. We don't have that. So let's be realistic and say that, okay, as I said beginning, we're not homogeneous. We are different group of people coming together to do business. Let's understand that the way we're going to do business is the way it's suitable to all of us as a group and all of us individually. We're individual countries. We're not ECOWAS. When you go to anywhere, do you tell people you're ECOWAS? Or you're Ghanaian? No, you answer that.
I don't know about that. Let me bring in Richard. And from all these discussions behind the scenes, and I get that view that it looks like already we are regretting this whole integration thing.
Oh, no,
because if you listen to several arguments, and I don't want us to restrict this thing to Ghana, Nigeria because of what is happening in Some magazine, but let's look at Ghana and even foreigners as a whole. Yes. And you have some making argument that, listen, we are talking about economic integration. Allow others to come into your market, do business. Someone say, no way. Respect our sovereign laws.
Nobody
respect our sovereign laws, which says that this space is, is restricted.
Nobody has ever said no to foreign
You're talking
trade.
About the fact that even the institutions that are supposed to guide these things are not there. But we've appended our signature to this whole idea about coming together.
No, we did so with a view that the necessary instruments will be made.
But they are not there as you speak right now.
If they are not there, why are you jumping the gun? Because we are talking about regulation. In every human aspect, the ball game is regulation. You cannot just be doing things. Even when you go to the local markets itself, amongst indigenous, you just cannot wake up and go to Malata market and say that you are going to sell.
Georgia, I'm coming to sell
tomato or whatever.
Let me make a quick point and I'll come back to you now.
Let me read this portion. A person who is not a citizen may engage in a trading enterprise if that person invests.
That's the GIPC Act?
That's the GIPC Act.
Okay, yeah.
If we invest not less than 1 million. That is the qualification.
Exactly.
If I want to be a doctor, I have to have a qualification. I want to be an engineer, I have to have the qualification. The same thing with lawyers and others. This is the qualification. 1 million. You have it, play the game. Game and ShopRite, they have the 1 million. They're doing the petty trading, they're doing the enterprise, and they're doing the other forms of trading. No problems. But you have 2 cents. And you want to come in and you serve the Kayayos. You serve the people that do the little things that we think as a country should be left to the citizenry so they can also have a living. It does not prevent us meaning integration at the highest levels. Integration of business, trading barriers. Yes, we will have to remove all the stops and those kind of things that we put in place from one location to the other, to the other, to the other. Those have been removed. But so far as qualification, we're talking about 2 different things.
Exactly.
Qualification. What would allow you to do ABC is the 1 million. What will allow you to do not have the 1 million is citizenship. So if you're a citizen of Ghana, you can do the petty trading, you can do the taxi. If you go to do the taxi, it has to be less than 24.
More than 5.
Yes.
Yeah.
So these are qualification requirements
that we should respect.
If I go to Sierra Leone and they say that before you can open ABC, you need to have Y, I have to respect.
It has to be respected.
ECOWAS does not usurp the laws of the local entity.
I see. Where do we stand? Nana Osebonsu is the chief executive of the Private Enterprise Federation, and also Richard Mpabe. He is an international trade expert. If you just join us in this discussion, we're looking at enforcing our retail trade laws in Ghana and whether it's a threat to the ECOWAS integration. Whilst you're talking about breaking down all the barriers and also allow people to move freely, countries like Ghana are saying that let's also respect our laws on retail trade
reserve those markets for indigenes unless those who are coming in and they are not Ghanaians are required or want to respect the laws that says that bring X amount of money and employ Ghanaians. What about the institutions that are supposed to actually enforce these laws in the respective countries? When we come back, we're looking at that one. This is the business edition of PM Express. We're bringing the views of government and somebody who has been trading in the West African region. What should we be careful about so that we don't see reprisal attacks and xenophobic attacks against Ghanaians in those countries? Business edition on PM Express will be back after this break. Business edition on PM Express. How do we enforce our trade laws in Ghana here to ensure that it also doesn't conflict with the treaties and principles of the ECOWAS integration? We've heard about some issues in Kumasi, in the Swami Magazine area, where some foreigners who want to operate in that retail area are insisting that rather let's work with the ECOWAS protocol. Some are saying that no, we have our laws in this country. But going forward, what do we draw the lines between protecting the interest of our locals, indigenes, and also promoting the broader spirit and letter of the ECOWAS integration? Where do we draw the lines in ensuring that whilst we drop the barriers, free visa entries, go in and go out, ensure that really the Kofi and the Ama out there are protected when it comes to doing petty trading? And I'll say Bonsu, Chief Executive of the Private Enterprise Federation, Richard Mpabeng. He is an international trade expert, and we're doing justice today on these issues. Nana, so you think that dropping the barriers, removing those requirements, does it mean that you can walk in and say that, listen, I set up a shop in front of JFM, I'm selling chalote, that is what I get from you?
Yes, because you see, I think we're mixing grapes, apples and grapes.
Or maybe
restrictions. Yeah, okay. Restrictions are artificial restrictions and barriers. Those are different. Requirements are qualifications to do business in A, B, C, D. The requirement to do banking, 400 million capitalization, requirement to do insurance, requirement to do any other things. They are requirements. They are what is stated capital, the requirements. That is what the 1 million means. To anybody coming to do trading, petty trading, they say the minimum for a foreigner is $1 million US. And I give example of the game and these guys doing retail trading whilst they've met the requirements. The ECOWAS is allowing you to come in and meet their requirements as a country. If you're not from ECOWAS, you might not even get that requirement because then you have to meet certain conditions of GIPC and all. So these are not restrictions, these are requirements, these are not trade barriers, these are just what you need to bring to the table to be able to do business in that arena. And I think the misinterpretation is what is causing the havoc. Those things that are happening.
Who is doing that?
What is happening in Kumasi is unacceptable because there must be enforcement agencies to make sure that these galamsey trading, I call them galamsey trading because they're not authorized, don't happen. But they don't have the authority to go and take them out. We have enforcement agencies that should be responsible for those kind of activities. So that definitely is unacceptable because every business, every investor has a right to property and assets, and they have a right to protect. So if you're going to tamper with their asset, they can also do other things. But let's look at it from the perspective, going forward, how do we do it? More explanation. You see, the key word in that GIPC Act restricting to Ghanaians is petty trading or hawking or selling of goods in a store at any place. People think that they say markets alone, any place. So you can, there was a case where a Chinese group were going to set up in the bushes and then bring, transformers and others to open the location. They knew that once they do, a lot of people will migrate to that place, and that they will say that we were here first, and we were not in the market, so we should be allowed it. But it says the trading, petty trading, in a place. So you cannot just go set up anywhere and be able to do without meeting the minimum requirement. So those are the things that we got to explain. We have to let people understand that yes, you are permitted to do, you can bring in-kind and a mix of cash and in-kind to meet the requirements of 1 million. Once you have done that, hallelujah, you go ahead and do what you want to do, and you are permitted to do that. But unless you do that, you meet that requirement, we're not going to let you definitely into that. That is no prevention.
So Nana is clearly respecting those internal laws in the respective countries.
Definitely, we should.
And the fact that it doesn't mean that we are
not necessarily internal laws.
Yeah.
Everything we do ought to be regulated. So internal regulations are there. And we can also, among our own strategy, we'll have our sensitive things in terms of trading, even products. Commodity-wise, we can have our own sensitive products.
These are the line of items that are reserved.
Our bloodline. We don't want to toy with it. Yes. For instance, cocoa. We can say that we will not allow foreigners to engage in cocoa trading. We can do that.
One critical thing that Nana raised in his submission was about regulation. And again, I'll come to Nana, that every country has regulators in several spaces that should align. And we know when the ECOWAS regulators, they meet, you have the transport, we have the central banks and all the rest. Are those who are supposed to protect these spaces or this space in Ghana here failing to do their job? You can talk about Ghana Immigration Service, Ghana Investment Promotion Center.
Mind you, I've told you that integration has two main things, talking about political economy and social economy. The things you are talking about are the political economy, which is not happening.
But so in this case, let's zoom into the situation in Kumasi, and even the traders in Accra here say they give them their full support what they are doing. Institutions or regulators are supposed to act.
No, those ones.
Ghana Immigration Service, Ghana, GIPC, are they failing to act?
You see, what is happening now? How are we sure that even they are touching people who have obeyed the law?
Yeah, that is wrong. Attacking anybody, foreigner, is
there
wrong.
Are some of them,
the concern that
there are
the
some
laws
of them,
are not being actually...
No, there are some of them who are respecting the laws.
Yeah.
Now, fusing all of them together, making it look like they've broken the law is wrong. Number two, nobody has given them the right to regulate. The regulator is there.
Yeah.
So if you think somebody is flouting the regulation, you go to the regulator and report.
You should leave it to the hands of the regulators to work.
You have to. Otherwise, you, the same people who want the law to protect you, you are breaking another law for another law to protect you.
Mr. Mpabin, again, I wanted to get your submission on this, that we trust, when I vote for someone as an MP to go to Parliament, I give him some right to go there and protect my interests. The regulators that we have appointed, or we have ceded our right to protect this space for us, are they doing their job?
Where is the element of MP?
Let me respond to
this. Let me look at GIPC, let me look at the Ghana Investment Promotion Center and Ghana Immigration Service.
Promotion Center is a public sector, a regulator, which has nothing to do with the political system. You can only tell me the head was appointed by...
But their work is supposed to ensure that whoever comes in...
They do work.
Yeah.
And are
they doing that? Are they enforcing their laws?
You see what we are mixing. The other time, you see, I drew in the operators themselves. That you are there. I mean, go to Malata Market, and if you say you are bringing tomato there, the regulation there, their own internal regulation is such that you cannot enter.
Because they have the market union association and all.
So these people, are they well also organized? You are not organized. Everybody is working in his own silo. So you cannot differentiate between who and
But that would not take the right from the responsibility from Ghana Immigration Service.
These things we are talking about, I'm sure we are not confusing it. It's an informal sector. We are not confusing it with the formal sector. The formal sector, nobody can do this.
So the backstop, when it comes to regulating this investment space, GIPC's regulation stops at the formal sector?
Emphasis of GIPC, I believe, is on the formal sector.
And in that space, they are doing their work?
Otherwise, tell me which organization is here doing an illegal activity.
I'll bring in Nana quickly into this. Bring in
government
in.
So, yeah.
Okay.
I know for sure that they're doing their job because
but
the sheer
the traders
violence,
disputed that. They don't think that they're doing their job.
because the sheer violence to monitor and enforce these things is not an easy task.
They should employ more people.
Oh, you can employ thousands to go and monitor things. The point is that once they take out those areas, there are other attributes to it. Who gave the store to them? The rentals. How did they rent it? So you go against the landlords who rented to the foreigners who didn't meet their requirements. So the point is, look at immigration. The informants, the guy enters the border, he gets a permit. Hallelujah. We didn't have a tracking system. You can't get them. You don't know where they went. And the next thing you know, they're trading in Brekum. How are you going to monitor that? So GIPC is doing the best under the circumstances with the kind of manpower that they have. They meet business associations, they meet petty traders association to find out, do you know of who is renting to what? To assist us, to track them, to make sure that they don't do what they need to do. So these are things that are not easy tasks to enforce, but they are on top of it, but not at least have their hands around the whole package as we're thinking. But that does not permit individuals to take the law into their hands to go and attack individuals.
That is wrong.
That is wrong. And we have to condemn that in no certain terms, because you see, it allows others to think that, oh, in Ghana there's a total breakdown of law, and people take the law into their hands and attack our citizenry.
That is
not the case.
Let me bring in government into this, and let's see on the broader level, should we come out clearly to state our position? Kojo Point Nkrumah is Minister of Information. He's been speaking to the current impasse between the Ghanaian traders and their foreign counterparts, and what is government doing on this particular issue? Let's watch Kojo's response to this particular issue.
I think one of the first things we have to do is to avoid any form of stereotype and xenophobia, whether in our reportage or in our public conversations about some of these matters, and to treat them on a specific basis. If you are finding any person, be that person Ghanaian or otherwise, who is engaged in any activity that is not in consonance with our laws, whether it's a Ghanaian operating a shop where that shop ought not to be operated, or operating without a necessary fire license or FDA approvals, whatever, if it's an American, if it's a Nigerian, if it's a Chinese, what we have to encourage people to do is to make a report on those specifics to the appropriate authorities so that they deal with it. It is necessary so that we avoid a certain stereotyping of a particular group of people. Else we also run the risk of our citizens elsewhere being stereotyped. But we can deal with individual breaches on the face of those specific breaches, and that is what we must encourage.
Has the ECOWAS protocols and treaties tied governments and whatever right things that they want to do, because we have appended our signature, free trade, we are trying to host the secretariat as well. These are all broader protocols that we signed up to, and do you think that in trying to even enforce our laws, we had our hands tied in doing that?
Our hands are not tied. We just have to understand that we work in a global ecosystem, and therefore we have to be very tactful whenever we are enforcing or going about any of these measures. And that's why I've encouraged that on specific basis, you can pick a particular matter that this person is operating without a fire license, this person is operating contrary to FDA approvals for this particular line of business, this person is operating contrary to this particular, let's say, regulation, and the various agencies can deal with it. Save that, we are generally interested in applying the kind of protocols that we have signed and our domestic laws that don't derogate from those protocols. I think that we can assure our traders that the government at every point in time is interested in ensuring that their interests are protected. But at the same time, we must ensure that the global and regional protocols are also respected. So for all our colleagues out there who have specific concerns, their leadership engages with government on a regular basis. They should do well to channel those concerns through their leadership. We engage with the leadership, and then what is doable within the legal framework, we do so. What we will discourage is anybody seeking to take the law into their own hands, to go out there and to seek to do anything that could be construed as illegal and which could attract the sanctions of our domestic laws.
we should be calm and not take the law into our own hands, and government is actually working to address the issues. There are even calls that an emergency heads of state meeting should be called to deal with the supposed ambiguities around this whole thing about where do we draw the line between an ECOWAS protocol, free movement, break down the barriers, and respecting the internal laws of Sierra Leone, the Gambia, and Ghana. Richard, you are an international trade person.
No,
what is your pick on this? Does it warrant a review of this treaty, this protocol by heads of state?
Well, I will hasten slowly and say that just this isolated small case shouldn't evoke emergency ECOWAS meeting, because the heads of states themselves and the trade ministers, finance ministers within the ECOWAS region, I think, know the problems that we are all facing, that the integration is not moving as we all thought. Where we are now, which is bringing in the friction, we should have completed 10 years ago, and we are still on it. And other competing regional bodies are taking over ECOWAS, mind you. The Continental Free Trade, for instance, is a bigger one, which is taking over ECOWAS one. Now, if you also talk about the EU ECOWAS treaty, for instance, it has also usurped some powers of ECOWAS itself.
ETLS, yes.
It's all there. And everybody, you see, Africa, and for that matter, the sub-Sahara is the greener pasture now. The whole world, when you go anywhere, everybody wants to come and invest here. Why? We have the youngest population.
70%.
We have the youngest population of about 70% of our people. So it creates that enabling environment for trading. And as a matter of fact, if we are not careful, I'm not thinking of our own big brother Nigeria. It is the Western world.
The Chinese even, it's not just about Nigerian issue. They are Chinese and all the rest coming to do that.
And will not
so
even
it's not
see.
A Nigerian issue.
We will not see. But because Nigerians are our brothers, we see them, we know what they are doing, and sometimes if you are not careful, it's the way. And again, let me also advise our people who are also indulging in the informal sector. The bottom line is that they always don't want to be regulated, they themselves, for purposes of tax. And these are some of the things you suffer. If they were to bring themselves together, we identify them, we know what they are doing, they keep books, accounting books for that matter, so that we can know how much they are earning, and then we tax them as such. Because of the word TAX, they don't want to integrate themselves. And that's the price you pay. So it is just there for anybody at all. Then people come and also indulge in it.
Let me bring in Nana in trying to make some progress on this issue, because it looks like from the commentary and all the rest, I stand to be corrected and educated, things are getting out of hand.
Yes.
What is the best way forward, the political solution to this? Because just like what I get from Mr. Ampabeng, it's about the backstops with the political solution to these things. Free trade, respecting the local laws.
I don't think it's political situation. It's
solution, as in
regulatory solution. There are regulators who are empowered to do ABC.
And they're doing their work.
And they're doing their work, possibly not in the volumes that we require.
They need to up their game.
They need to up their game. Let's allow them to do the immigration, the GIPC, and the other agencies to do what they need to do. But he mentioned something about the MSMEs not being tax compliant. There are a whole lot of things about it. That's why they're not tax compliant, because they don't even understand their obligation under the tax system. Because the tax language is here, they are here. And who wants to pay a consultant before I go pay my taxes at cost? I'm paying taxes, but I have to pay a consultant to do the homework for me. So now the Private Enterprise Federation, IEA, and ESA working, and we sat here and did the dissemination of that information, working on the business enabling environment, trying to work with GRA. GRA has what we call ITAPs. That has a record-keeping mechanism for private sector businesses. So it keeps a record. At the end of the year, it feeds into the tax return base, and it forms the tax return for you without going to pay additional costs to a tax consultant. Those are bringing most of the businesses that were not keeping records into the tax net. That is one side. But what the business at hand today is, this open trading is to allow everybody to meet the requirements of the respective countries to do the trading. It does ECOWAS. I don't see anywhere in the ECOWAS treaty that once we sign on to this treaty, there are no laws in the respective countries. It didn't say that. It says you can free movement of goods and people, or people and goods, but once you get to the country, you need a driver's license to drive. You don't have a driver's license, you got to be arrested. You need ABC to do 1, 2, 3. If you don't have that, you got to be kicked out. So these are the requirements, but we have taken the upper road and said, ECOWAS says freedom of movement. And
we're picking and choosing. Also, we have to draw the curtains down on this program, but let me get a wrap up. I'm sorry, Mr. Mpabeng, the way forward. In a minute, what do we have to do to ensure that we get a common solution to this problem? Because it will be Ghana today, tomorrow it will be Sierra Leone, another day it will be the Gambia, another day it will be Nigeria. In a minute, what's the best way forward in dealing with this issue?
The best way forward is for us as a country to take critical notice that the informal sector is a sector which is sustaining us in terms of employment today. And if we don't take care and we jeopardize the informal sector, we'll run away from this country.
It has to be protected.
It has to be protected because that sector is a sponge-like employment generation. And I also say that the people in the informal sector should make conscious effort through their leaders to formalize.
No, 30 seconds, sorry.
You see, he just mentioned the informal sector. 86% of the informal sector is the backbone of the GDP. So we need to definitely make sure that they continue to do business and be able to get some livelihood and income. But the way forward is more education. More education to explain the merits and the tenets of what these protocols mean, what these GIPC mean and all. Because we have misinformed the public to the point that the GIPC law, everybody said, let's go change it. The foreigners say, let's go change it. Guta says, forget about it, you do that, we kill somebody. You know, so these are issues that we got to address with information, the right information to educate every Tom, Dick and Harry across the sub-region. So at least we can have a harmonized economic zone for trading and doing business.
Free trade. And also, Bonsu is the Chief Executive of the Private Enterprise Federation, Richard Mpabeng. He's an international trade expert. We hope that we've been able to offer some solutions, some education on this hot topic that might not be ending anytime soon. My name is George. You are here starting for your regular host, Philip Danfuri, as we discuss business edition, integration, protecting the local space for indigents on the business edition of PM Express. Have a very good night and enjoy your night.